Ever wondered why some schools have such high pass rates? In Kyoto, there's a place where no student ever leaves their desk, because they literally become part of it. Welcome to Fukusei Academy, where commitment to education is permanent. Hideo Nakamura was always an average student. At 17, he transferred to Fukusei Academy in Kyoto, a school known for its strict discipline and flawless college entrance exam results. The building was an old Meiji-era structure, with narrow hallways and large classrooms lit by tall windows that cast a cold, diffuse glow. On his first day, Hideo noticed something off about the other students. They stayed frozen at their desks, even during breaks. Their black uniforms looked too pristine, like they'd never been taken off. Some had deep, dark circles and a deathly pallor, but all sat with perfect posture. "Fukusei values discipline above all," said Director Kagami, a tall, gaunt man with round glasses that reflected light hiding his eyes. "Our methods are traditional but effective. Very effective." During math class, Hideo felt something strange under his desk. Running his fingers along the underside, he found small ridges like surgical stitch scars. He glanced at the girl. Next to him, Yumiko, whose hands rested on her desk with an odd stiffness. When she caught his stare, she gave a faint smile. "Don't worry," she whispered. "You'll get used to it. We all do." After class, Hideo noticed several students didn't leave their desks. A hall monitor moved among them, handing out small colored pills that they swallowed without question. In the school library, Hideo found old yearbooks. Flipping through, he spotted a disturbing pattern. The same faces appeared year after year, never aging. The same blank expressions, the same forced smiles. In a 1987 yearbook, he recognized a familiar face. The literature teacher who didn't look a day over 30. That night in the shared dorm, Hideo woke to muffled sobbing. His roommate, Tanaka, sat on the edge of his bed, frantically rubbing his thighs. "What's wrong?" Hideo asked, flicking on the light. Tanaka lifted his pajama pants, revealing tiny thread-like wounds on his thighs. "They're growing," he muttered. "The threads. They sink into your skin when you sit too long. That's how it starts." "How what starts?" Tanaka didn't answer. He just shook his head and crawled back to bed. The next morning, his seat in class was empty. When Hideo asked about him, the teacher smiled and said, "Tanaka was moved to the advanced class. If you work hard, you might be promoted too." At lunch, Hideo noticed many students ate with one hand. The other stayed oddly on the table, fingers twitching in small rhythmic spasms. Yumiko sat across from him, glancing nervously around before speaking. "You need to leave," she whispered, "while you still can." "What are you talking about?" "Fukusei isn't a normal school. They call it the fixation method. To make sure we learn, they fix us. Literally." When she lifted her uniform sleeve, Hideo saw thin black threads sprouting from tiny holes in her skin, like surgical sutures trailing down her arm and vanishing under the table. At first, it's just a few threads to enforce posture. Then, they stitch more and more of you, to make sure you never abandon your studies. By his second week at Fukusei Academy, Hideo started feeling itches on his legs and arms whenever he sat at his desk. In the communal shower, he examined his skin and found tiny red dots, like needle pricks, forming symmetrical patterns on his thighs and forearms. During biology class, Professor Matsuda announced a special topic: symbiosis between organisms. With a thin smile and vacant eyes, he explained, "In nature, some creatures merge to survive. The host provides sustenance while the parasite offers purpose. At Fukusei Academy, we've perfected this natural bond." He unlocked a cabinet and pulled out a model unlike anything Hideo had ever seen. It resembled a human torso, but where organs should have been, there was a tangled web of black threads and root-like structures spreading like artificial veins. "This is the Fukusei Educational Integration System," the professor said. Our top students form a symbiotic bond with their desks. Knowledge flows directly into their brains, eliminating distractions and inefficiencies. That afternoon, Hideo secretly followed Yumiko to a basement room. Peeking through the door's crack, he saw rows of motionless students, tethered to their desks by intricate networks of black threads sprouting from their spines, arms, and legs. IV tubes fed nutrients into their bodies, while headphones pumped information non-stop. Director Kagami walked among the rows, inspecting each student with satisfaction. Look at their dedication, he told a nurse taking notes. These will be our finest graduates, absorbing knowledge 24 hours a day. No breaks, no distractions, no waste. Back in the dorm, Hideo found his mattress covered in a thin layer of black threads, as if they'd sprouted from the fabric itself. When he touched them, the threads writhed like living tendrils, coiling around his fingers. With horror, he realized they were the same material as the ones in the desks. The next day, his desk had a new seat, soft and strangely warm to the touch. During class, an unusual drowsiness hit him, and when he snapped awake, he saw tiny blood spots on his pants, right where his thighs touched the seat. After classes, Hideo broke into the teacher's lounge, searching for answers. In a locked file, he found old documents revealing Fukusei Academy's true history. Founded in the 1920s by a scientist obsessed with educational efficiency, the school began with hypnosis and conditioning experiments. Eventually, the founder created an organic synthetic material that could fuse with human tissue and transmit electrical impulses directly to the nervous system. Attached photos showed generations of model students fully integrated with their desks, some with skin partially melded to metal and wood, faces frozen in vacant, ecstatic expressions as knowledge was pumped into their brains. A recent report detailed how the most integrated graduates were transferred to a secret facility under Mount Hiei, where they served as biological processors for the Fukusei network, powering the Academy's educational program. That night, Hideo woke to a sharp pain in his spine. Lifting his pajama shirt, he saw with horror that tiny black filaments had emerged from the skin along his backbone, twitching like insect legs. By the third week, Hideo couldn't leave his desk without feeling sharp, searing pain. The wires had burrowed deeper, anchoring themselves into his spinal cord. During classes, he'd get flashes of knowledge that weren't his, complex mathematical formulas, poems in languages he'd never studied, memories of people he'd never met. Yumiko vanished for days. When she finally came back, she was different, paler, thinner, her movements mechanical. Her eyes had the same hollow glow as the seniors. "It's better this way," she said in a flat, lifeless voice. "Fighting it only drags out the pain. Integration brings peace." At the weekly assembly, Principal Kagami announced the results of the latest national exams. Fukusei Academy had achieved a 100% pass rate for the 57th year in a row. As the teachers clapped, Hideo noticed something unsettling. Several students' hands moved in perfect sync, as if controlled by a single mind. Desperate for answers, Hideo sought out the school's oldest janitor, a man named Saito who'd worked there since the 60s. "The wires grow both ways," the old man explained, showing faded scars on his own arms. "From the desk to the student, and from the student to the desk. After a while, you can't tell where one ends and the other begins. And no one tries to stop it. Don't the families notice?" The janitor let out a bitter laugh. "The families? They pay for this. A kid at Fukusei Academy is a guaranteed success. What's a few modifications compared to a spot at Tokyo University?" In the library, Hideo found a rare book on Kyoto's hidden history. It revealed that the land where Fukusei Academy stood was once home to a temple dedicated to an obscure deity called Kaishaku-sama, the god of consuming knowledge. The god was depicted as a spider-like creature with thousands of threads spilling from its body. According to legend, Kaishaku-sama offered infinite wisdom in exchange for the permanent physical anchoring of its followers. The monks who worshipped it gradually fused with their meditation seats, becoming living repositories of knowledge. The next night, Hideo tried to escape, but when he reached the school gates, his body just stopped. His feet refused to take another step, as if held by invisible ropes. A blinding pain shot through his spine, and images flooded his mind. Hundreds of students' faces, past and present, all linked in a vast neural network. "We are Fukusei," voices whispered in his head. "And now, so are you." The next morning, Hideo returned to his desk without a fight. The wires now visibly sprouted from his wrists and ankles, tethering him permanently to the seat. As the teacher lectured, he felt a strange euphoria as knowledge poured directly into his brain. Principal Kagami watched from the doorway, a satisfied smile on his face. In his hands was a list of new transfer students arriving the following week. Fresh minds to feed the network, fresh bodies for the empty desks. Years later, when visitors ask about Fukusei Academy's impressive results, the guides proudly show off classrooms full of perfectly still students, eternally focused, with serene smiles frozen on their pale faces. "Our students never abandon their education," the guide says with a smile. "They become part of it, forever." In the archive room, locked behind layers of security, there's a special desk, older than the rest, made of darkened wood and rusted metal. Nearly fused into its structure is what used to be the body of the school's founder, his eyes still open, forever watching his creation grow, desk by desk, student by student. And on quiet nights, when the moon lights up the tall windows of the empty classrooms, you can hear the faint creak of wood and the almost imperceptible hum of information pulsing through organic wires buried beneath the floor, linking every desk to a vast underground network that stretches far beyond the school's boundaries.